All right, welcome to Get Nisty, the series that breaks compliance out of the checkbox trap and turns it into a real security advantage. No fluff, no FUD, just practical strategies to make compliance work for your MSP. I'm Jared Kasner, and I'm joined by my co-host of Get Nisty and co-founder of Blacksmith InfoSec, Michael Zabarski. Today's listener questions focus on the human side of compliance, culture and awareness. Our first one comes from James, an MSP partner in Minneapolis, who asked, I've rolled out security awareness training, but it doesn't seem to stick. How do you actually build a culture where employees care about cybersecurity? Mike, you want to take the first stab at this one?
Sure. I actually really love rolling out security awareness programs. And, it's a lot, right? You need to get the users ingrained into it. You need to get their buy-in. You need to get them on board. You need to get executive sponsorship, because the last thing you want to do is send out some sort of training or phishing thing, and then all of a sudden the executives are mad at you. And so there's a lot that kind of goes into it in doing it well. But the biggest thing really is that you need to find a way for the users to feel like they're part of it. And so there's different ways to do that, right? You can send out informational tidbits about what's important to them, right? Apple puts out a massive vulnerability, they're patching, so sending out a reminder to say, hey, make sure you update your home iPads, home Macintoshes, etc. Update your iPhones. Really make it personal to them, and also make it personal to their families, right? Update your kids' phones, update your kids' iPads. A great piece of that is like Data Privacy Day. So Data Privacy Day used to be January 28th. Now it's Data Privacy Week. But it's a good time to remind them, hey, go check your Social Security reports, make sure there's nothing there. Pull your credit reports, make sure there's nothing there. And also pull your kids' credit reports, make sure there's nothing there. Make sure, protect your family. And so as you start bringing them into this, it really goes a long way to say, hey, this is how this applies to my life. And how does this apply to the work life? And it goes the same thing, right? Same principles. Make sure you're careful. Look at the links you're clicking, things like that. So, you can have fun with it. You can play games. One of the companies I was at, we were trying to find new and creative ways to engage with the people in the organization, and had this idea with our CIO that we should do a poetry contest, and literally rolled out a poetry contest to say, hey, come up with cybersecurity related poems, not haikus. Haikus are not a form of poetry. I will die on that hill. But other than that, come up with any sort of cybersecurity poem, and people would submit them, and we'd pull winners and give them gift cards and really get them involved and having fun.
Yeah, I think what we need is a poem. That's
This is why we can't have nice things, Jared.
yeah, no, those are all really good ideas, right? It's how do you bring people into it? And one thing that I've found is really helpful, in addition to kind of gamifying it a little bit with the poem competition that you're talking about, is put security into everybody's job description, right? When you talk about your marketing team is responsible not just for collecting contacts and populating the CRM and communicating with them, but also the security of your CRM. Oh, I actually have to think about and be responsible for the systems that I'm controlling, right? And so when you start putting security into everybody's job description, and I'm going to get into a little bit of that in just a second here, but when you start putting that into everybody's job description, you start making it a shared responsibility. And you do want to be careful, right? Because if you have, I talk about this frequently, you have a huge problem when you have too many owners, and a huge problem when you have too few owners, right? And so if there's no one single throat to choke, because you have too many people that are actually owning things, guess what? You're going to have a lot of problems of like, oh, hey, it's Mike's got it, no Jared's got it, no Mike's got it, no Jared, right? And you don't want to have those battles. When you have nobody owning it, it just falls through the cracks and you forget about it. So you do need to have a single owner for the entire security program, and that could be if you don't have a CISO on staff, it could be your CFO who understands organizational risk. It could be your chief operating officer. It could just be your CEO. But you need to have one person who's responsible for that organizational security and risk management. But then when you layer in the individual responsibilities, again, marketing owns the security for the marketing database. Sales owns the security for the way that they're communicating with clients and prospects. engineering owns and your techs own the security for your RMM as an MSP and any scripts that you're running, right? When you start putting that onus of responsibility on the individuals, it creates a different and starts to permeate throughout the organization that way also. And you can have that as part of your hiring process, right? When it becomes part of your hiring process, guess what? Now people are coming in expecting to own that and expecting to have that.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, right? Especially if you're in a regulated space, whether it's HIPAA, PCI, make sure your users are trained on proper PHI handling, PCI handling, etc. And do that as they're onboarding. If you have a user starting and the first thing they have to do is security awareness training, they know you guys take it seriously, right? And that way there's less pushback. You've already established that culture of security. And but again, a lot of that has to do with executive buy-in and what the executives will or won't let you do, right? I always hear from partners, and I had to deal with this when I was running security programs. Well, Bob just won't do the training. What do we do? Well, what are you willing to do, right? And I've seen the full gamut of we're going to do nothing, and those security programs usually fail. To hey, we're going to withhold Bob's pay until he does the training, and so right, both extremes, but somewhere in the middle is the right answer, right? And so the question becomes, how do you do that? I've seen something that works really well is if you're past doing your training, your account gets temporarily suspended until you have to sit there with your manager to do your training. Guess what? First time that happens, your manager's not too happy about that. So that usually doesn't happen again. There's just different ways to handle it, but ideally you don't want to use the stick, you want to use the carrot, get them involved, make it personal to them, show them how it helps them with their job as well as their personal life, and bring them into the fold.
Yeah, and I think one of the other ways that you can do that is look as you're looking and evaluating the security awareness training providers, look for the ones that have more engaging content, right? If it's the we'll call it the 1980s or 1990s HR video type of security awareness training, your employees are not going to engage with that too much. When it's the really stilted conversation, like, the HR policies all kind of factor into that also, right? But when you're thinking about those like really cheesy videos, your employees just laugh it off and they don't take it seriously. When you can find high, and there are some great ones out there that have really high production value. Those are going to be much more engaging. Your users are going to actually talk about those. You can even have conversations as part of your company all hands and other meetings to kind of draw people in and ask questions. And hey, what did you think about that video? Oh, you didn't like that one. Interesting. Tell me more. Right. And when you start getting feedback and taking people seriously and looking for, again, that higher value, higher production value content, you're going to find a much deeper engagement with your users as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, all right, let's say we've got really good security content, high production value. Let's say people are watching it, but they're still doing bad things. Mike, what are some ways to kind of bring them along for the ride and keep them engaged and focused on the right things from a security standpoint and building that secure culture?
Yeah, you're always going to have habitual clickers, right? So there's always going to be someone that is just going to click. It doesn't matter what you send them. I've had instances before where I would send like a phishing email about someone buying something on Amazon, and you send it to the whole company, and it's something people don't normally buy. I think in that case it was like a Netgear switch or a Netgear router or something. I had someone high up in the company call their wife and yell at them for ordering stuff they don't need, right? And so again, at that point, how do you explain to them, hey, what you're saying is your wife ordered something on your Amazon account attached to your work email. Like, let's pause, and think, could this possibly be legitimate, right? A lot of it is just having those conversations and having a escalation process for them, right? So step one is having a conversation with whoever is in charge of the phishing program, for example, to say, hey, like, why'd you click on this? Let's talk about what you could have seen in here that would have tipped you off that this was a phishing email. One could be the next level up if they keep doing it is sit down with their manager. Next level up is sit down with their director. Next one up, sit down with the executive that they report up to. Again, like once you're sitting with the CFO and the CFO is like, so why did you click on this phishing email? Again, the idea here is to train them not to do it, because you want to make sure that they are doing it on your training exercises and not on actual phishing emails and putting the company at risk. Other things that I've seen that have worked really well just in general have been, I've talked about a little bit about the gamification and the poetry contests. There's also things that I've seen where just having whoever's in charge of security talk about security at all hands meetings. So give them the platform, give them 5 minutes, let them know what's going on, have them talk about the threat landscape, talk to them about what's going on in general in the company, different initiatives, different things. But the main thing from a security standpoint is having relationships with the organization. Like, you have to have trust. You can't be the department of no, like it used to be back in the day. You need to be engaged with the business. And so a lot of it is sitting down, talking to department heads and saying, hey, what are your initiatives? Let's talk about how security fits into that. How do we roll this out in a secure fashion? And you're not always going to be able to do it in a secure fashion, right? Sometimes you're going to be registering a risk, and that's fine as well. But they need to understand that risk, and you need to have someone sign off on that risk and accept that risk. And again, it all goes back to, hey, this is a safe place where we can come back and say, hey, we have this idea that we want to try. Cool. Let's figure out how to do this in as a secure fashion as we can. That sounded wrong, but in as much of a secure fashion as we can. And so again, working across the aisle, bringing people together, figuring out how do we run this business quickly, securely, and with as much risk as little risk as we're willing to take on, or as much risk as we're willing to take on. Either way, right?
Yeah, either way you want to look at it. But you bring up an interesting point, right? Because it's one of the things that we can do as technical professionals is put in the right guardrails, right? And so I'm sure you've all seen the headers or the banners in your email when you get, especially if there's an email coming from a sender whose name looks like, if I looks like Michael Zabarski sent me an email and it's Mike sending something from his Gmail account to me, it'll either get stuck in my quarantine or I'll get a banner that says, hey, this is an atypical sender, or an email address that looks like somebody in your organization, or I'll get, this is an external sender, right? So there are ways to put some guardrails on your email accounts to start preventing some of that spoofing. Using the link checkers. So before anything gets sent out, or when somebody clicks on the link, checking to make sure it's not a malicious site or a known bad site, right? Doing some of those things and putting the technical guardrails in place so that when your users, because they inevitably will click on a link, whether it's sometimes they're just having a bad day, right? Even as security professionals, we sometimes are having a bad day, we haven't had enough coffee, whatever. We click on a link and we say, uh-oh, right? And most of the time, just clicking on a link isn't going to cause any catastrophic issues. It's the next step of entering your credentials or whatever else that really makes you vulnerable to things. But there are some malicious sites, and if you don't have those technical guardrails in place, you can have you can turn a minorly bad day of clicking a link into a really bad day because you don't have those things in place. So again, yes, it's great to sort of get the cultural norms in place, but then using technology to kind of bridge the gap for when the culture either isn't caught up yet or when somebody's just having a bad day.
Yeah. The other thing, speaking of bad days, that we'll bring up is make it okay to have a bad day, right? I'd much rather have someone click on the phishing link and say, oh, shoot, and report it to me, than click on the phishing link and say, oh, God, I can't believe I did this. I need to not tell security because I don't want to get yelled at again. And so, right, because then, like, who knows, the threat actor could have access. Now you need even more technology guardrails to capture all that. There was an incident where someone got an email and had a Word doc attachment. They opened it and the Word document was just empty. And they were like, oh, that's weird. And they reported it to security right away. And they did fire analysis. There was stuff involved that they had to clean up, etc. But because she reported it right away, they were able to put the security safeguards to protect it. They reset her password. They took care of her machine. And it really mitigated a much larger issue. So again, just make sure that the people in the organization trust you and feel safe to create a safe space for them so that they feel comfortable coming to you when they mess up, right? Like, and it's a delicate balance, right? Because on one hand, you have to make sure you yell them enough so they don't mess up. on the other hand, create a safe enough environment where when they do mess up, they feel comfortable coming to. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we've sufficiently answered your question. So, James, I hope that did everything you needed it to do. If not, please shoot us another question or send us an email, and we'll follow up on that one in a later episode. Mike, you want to read our next question?
Sure. This one is from Priya out of Toronto, Ontario. We've been doing phishing tests, but people get upset and feel tricked. How do you balance training and testing without making employees resent it? Jared, do you want to take a stab at this one first, and then I'll interrupt you and jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it says resent IT, but resent it works here also. But in any event, Priya, you're exactly right. And we hear this all the time, right? You need your phishing emails or your phishing tests to look and feel enough like a real, the simulation needs to be real. Otherwise, people aren't going to learn from it. If you make it too real and they're falling for it and feeling like they've been tricked, that it does absolutely build that resentment. We've seen this over and over again, and so it's finding the right balance. And so, looking for the realistic emails. But more importantly, when they click on those emails, if you have somebody saying and kind of slapping their hand as soon as they click the link, they're going to start building resentment immediately. If you instead have a very informational site that says, "Hey, just want you to know this was a malicious link, or this was a phishing simulation. Here are and I've seen some really good examples of this, where, and I don't want to call out any specific vendors because this isn't a sales pitch, but when it pops up that quote unquote malicious URL, it shows exactly and highlights exactly what in the email were the clues and the red flags to give it away. Right? You want to make it educational, you want to make it informative, and you want to help them understand here are the reasons why this thing succeeds, right? And we see this all the time. It's a false sense of urgency. So, and this is especially true around the holidays for package delivery notifications. Free food, interestingly, is like, even for the most well-paid people, you send them a thing saying free pizza to the first 100 people that click a link. Guess what? You're going to get a lot of people clicking that link. And then, but that it's that building that sense of urgency or giving something away. And again, both of those sort of have that sense of urgency baked into it. When you have that sense of urgency, people panic. And when people panic, they click links. And now they've clicked the link, and half the time they will realize as soon as they click the link, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. And so if you're immediately slapping their hand when you get to the simulation page, you're just going to reinforce that like feeling of dread. If you instead say, all right, look, here's some very simple remedial training, 30-second video that shows why it's important and why to think about these things. It's what is my kid's Taekwondo studio? It's fast is slow, or slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I forgot what the exact saying is, but it's something along those lines where fast is slow, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. But the idea is if you actually take 5 seconds to stop and think about what you're doing, you will make a better informed decision. It will actually help you improve your overall velocity. You'll move faster, and it'll be a much smoother and less jerky response that you're going through with these things. And so again, having a nicer way of slapping the wrist, up to a point, obviously, right? If it's the habitual clicker that Mike was talking about earlier, maybe a stronger message is warranted. But Mike, why don't you fill in some blanks here?
Yeah, no, I think you're on point. The other thing that I've seen a lot is, as far as people feeling that they've been tricked, is the pushback of, oh, well, this one was really hard to spot and it's not fair. And you always hear that as someone running these phishing exercises. And it's like, look, I get this one was more difficult, but guess what? The threat actors don't care about that. And especially with AI, like now they're crafting, like the piece of like, hey, you can look for poor English has really gone out the window with AI because they're just having AI generate the emails and the English grammar has been fixed. So again, it's going to be more difficult. And so we have to do our due diligence. And again, I would much rather you fail my phishing simulation than fall for a phishing simulation from a threat actor. So that's always a big thing, right? The other thing I will say is if you're doing a phishing simulation, and you're using an executive's name within the phishing simulation, clear it with the executive first, because I have seen people absolutely yelled at and destroyed over why'd you send that with the CEO's name on it without asking the CEO, because like causes all sorts of issues. um, and so again, delicate balance, because on one hand you don't want to tell the CEO, hey, we're doing this phishing exercise. Maybe you do two that month, and one of them with him and one of them without him or her, and you say, hey, we're going to use this one for you. Are you okay with this? And then there's going to be an extra one that you're not going to be aware of. But definitely, if you're using someone's name within the phishing simulation, get clearance for it, because I have seen that go very poorly.
Yeah. Well, so let me tell a quick anecdote along those lines, where the CEO actually fell for and not just fell for the phishing email, but fell for it hook, line, and sinker. So this is a simulation around the end of the year. I think it was right before Thanksgiving, where it was purportedly HR sending an email to the staff saying, "Hey, if you don't get your vacation requests in before Thanksgiving, your anything that's received after Thanksgiving is going to just be automatically declined. And by the way, we're not rolling over any extra vacation time, so you need to get it in quickly." And the CEO, rather than clicking the link, which was, I suppose, in one way a good thing, read this, said, "Uh-oh," forwarded the email to the entire organization saying, "What the hell is the matter with you people? Why does HR constantly have to be on your case about entering your time off information, blah, blah, blah." Something like 57% of the company clicked the link and entered their information to enter their credentials, right? It wasn't just that they clicked the link, it was that they continued on and entered their credentials to go to log into the HR platform and submit their time off. And so, again, you go from the maybe it's a bad day to oh crap, it's a really bad day. And again, fortunately, this was a simulation, so it could have been a lot worse. But the threat actors don't care whether it's, to Mike's point, it's like they're out there looking, they're hunting, right? They want to get you. They're going to use every trick in the book to get you. And so as security professionals, we have to train people to think about those things. And again, it honestly, it really comes down to critical thought. It's a vanishing skill in our society these days, but you have to think critically about what's presented to you and think about, if it seems too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. If you're getting an email about a bill that you don't remember paying for, look up train your people to go out and find a known good phone number for whoever the biller is and call them and say, "Hey, are you sure this bill is legitimate?" "It is? Okay, great. By the way, your emails look very suspicious right now. Here are some things that were suspicious to me," so they can go and update it and adjust along the way. But
yeah, and I will say, this was an interesting experience earlier on in my career, where we got a suspicious looking email. We reached out to the biller and we're like, "Hey, was this you?" And they said, "Yeah, this was us." And we're like, "Cool. Just so you know, here's what looks suspicious." And they said, "That shouldn't be there." And they actually found out that they had been breached because we had reached out to them to say, "Hey, like, here's what we're seeing." And they're like, "Oh, that part shouldn't be there." So again, it goes back to building a secure community.
yeah. All right, Mike, anything else you want to add to this one?
Training wise, phishing wise, I think we've covered it pretty well. Yeah, I think just in closing, just encourage people to report phishing incidents. Again, whether you sent it or not, work with them to make sure that they're communicating stuff to you, and not just phishing, any sort of cyber incident, anything that seems, the old adage of see something, say something.
Yep.
Have them come to you, report stuff. Worst case scenario, it's nothing, and you move on. Best case scenario, it's something, and you've stopped an attack. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening. If you have questions that you'd like to see answered, you can go out and over to blacksmithinfosec.com/ask and send those in. We have a commitment that we will answer every question that has come in, even if it takes us the next 10 years. So please get those questions in. Mike will be answering questions until he's got gray hair, which at the rate we're going might be sooner rather than later. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone.